Welcome to the original Gangsters Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Burnstein. We have a very special guest, our resident Canadian organized crime expert, former union boss and mob buster, Ken Pereira. Ken, we haven't had you on in a couple months. In Canada, there's stuff going on every 30 seconds, so a lot to catch up on. Thanks for joining the show again.
Thank you for inviting me again. And exactly, there's never a dull moment here in Montreal, especially in the mob-related areas.
Yeah, it's
the last frontier.
Yeah, it is. It really is, and it's writing like most books have like 10 chapters in it, and this is like there's a new chapter being written every couple of days. I think this story of the last 15, 20 years is a 100, 200 chapter soap opera, Goodfellas and The Godfather and Easy Rider, all rolled into one.
Absolutely. It's a great movie. I'm telling you, in live action, it's an incredible story.
And this is I guess there already was a television series written about the first part of this. Bad Blood with Anthony LaPaglia and Paul Sorvino. This is this has been a pretty crazy. I guess that was the first iteration. I keep on talking about how all the instability in Canada has all these different iterations and phases, and just when you think things are slowing down, they ramp up again. So the main reason I want to have you on is to talk about some pretty important news that came out this week related to the we kind of for a second we've kind of forgotten about the Quebec City Hells Angels Blood Family Mafia War, which was a secondary war to the Hells Angels Rizzuto Mob War. But then that war came to an end. But we're a year after that, and the 81 in Quebec City is still fighting against the Blood Family Mafia and Ice Pick Turmel, who's sitting behind bars in Italy right now, waiting for extradition back to Canada to face gangsterism charges. And this all started in terms of the war between Blood Family Mafia and Quebec City Hells Angels all started with a personal beef between Ice Pick Turmel and the prince of the Quebec City Hells Angels, Matt Pelletier, whose dad, Big Tom Pelletier, is the godfather of the Hells Angels in Quebec City. He founded the Quebec City Hells Angels.
The original OG.
The original triple OG, Big Tom Pelletier. Well, his son, who's a 33 years old, and Ice Pick Turmel is 29, so younger guys, and they were doing a lot of business together in the early 2020s. Drugs, extortion, prostitution. Everybody was one big happy family. There were issues with the Quebec City Hells Angels traditional 10% tax on all drug sales being conducted on the streets in Quebec City. That caused some consternation between Pelletier and Turmel. And then in March of 2023, Turmel finds a tracking device on his car, blames Pelletier, pulls a drive-by at Pelletier's house with Pelletier's family there. Exactly. And that erupts the war that's now been going on 3 years. Matt Pelletier was arrested this week for the murder of a woman who was the mom of one of Ice Pick Turmel's top lieutenants, a guy named Jeff Morin.
Was that Morin? Yeah, Morin. Morin. Morin.
So according to the arrest warrant, and Pelletier was pulled off a plane going to Mexico. He was in Toronto. He was leaving from the Toronto airport, Pearson International. there had been a series of raids at the end of last month. I think 13 guys got picked up for this conspiracy. And again, Jeff Moraine didn't get killed. The contract was on Jeff Moraine. A hit team allegedly dispatched by Pelletier, goes and shoots up Jeff Moraine's house. And instead of killing Jeff, they kill his mother, Jennifer.
Exactly.
45-year-old mom in Charlesbourg, which is a suburb of Quebec City. And it's tragic. But, any thoughts about, you think this might signal a downturn in the sense of hostilities? Sometimes when innocent people end up getting killed, it gives everybody kind of a reality check, and maybe sometimes that allows people to pull back.
It all depends, in my opinion, also always, who got killed. But if the son or the mobster's family got killed, does he lay down? Does he understand the rules? Does he take for granted, listen, this is part of the game. We're asking you to stop because we did a ceasefire or whatever, and you better stop or you're going to pass through this because you're not as white as you think or whatever. If he doesn't and he says, we killed my mother, you killed somebody innocently, this might escalate. That's guaranteed. But I believe that it might. He's a soldier, right? And soldiers take orders. And I don't believe that he's gonna if they use him as a way to attack again, it's because they really wanted to do it initially. That's my take.
So I mean, we've had 2 ceasefires in this war broken. Yeah. One in April of 24 and then one in the fall of 24, where on 2 separate occasions it looked like everybody was laying down their arms. And in fact, my reporting was that in 24, if you were like doing an analysis on paper of who got the best deal in the ceasefire, the ceasefire looked like it benefited Blood Family Mafia, but Blood Family Mafia broke the ceasefire last year, and it's a year later, and now you have Matt Pelletier, one of the top combatants, arrested for this murder. Can you tell the audience in the United States? Can you kind of describe the difference between Montreal and Quebec City?
Well, Montreal and Quebec City, if we can give you an example of, Chicago and a suburb of Chicago, I'd say it's in Canada, the closest thing is Ottawa and Toronto. So it's a capital city, mostly a lot of employees that are working for the government. And Montreal is the capital city, which is not the official capital city of Quebec, but it's a much more dynamic metropolitan city. But in the look, if we're talking about the gangsters, it was always, it's Buffalo, we could say, compared to New York.
Okay.
A lot of crime, but never had the reputation that New York had, and always had, in a sense, New York decides everything. You guys in Buffalo, you might have a good family, a big family, but you still take orders from what we are doing, even though and this is what I believe Quebec is it's a little city that was left alone for a lot of time that could have a lot of strength coming in because major police weren't really involved in Quebec as much as they were in Toronto or in Montreal or in Vancouver. So they let them just thrive, and become much bigger than they were supposed to. They could have killed them initially, killed them right away at the beginning, and it just, they let them grow and grow and grow. And now it's a bit out of control because the gangs, especially the established gangs in Quebec, the mob is not really there, and the Hells Angels, which were, we could say, infiltrated the mostly in there, are getting much older. So they're getting them also much more. They don't want no wars, They just want their check every week, every 2 weeks. Give me this, give me this, and don't. And then when you see these young guys taking control, and it's almost like Jurassic Park. Remember when the dinosaur hits the fence to see where the weak point is? Well, that's what I feel like. Quebec is, BFM tried the defense, in Quebec. Let's see how weak they are in this area, because I think we can get them here much more than in Montreal, much more in other areas. And that's why the Saguenay and BFM were much more stronger in some areas of Quebec, especially the outskirts, than in Montreal. Maybe I'm wrong there, but that's what
so Ice Pick Turmel. No, I think you're right. I think that it plays into the narrative here and how we got to this point. David Turmel, Pick Turmel, is he's built this thing up through pure, force of personality. For a guy that's not even 30, he was able to consolidate all the
lot of
street gangs,
charisma,
right? And balls. He's fearless.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So he hasn't been in Canada in 2 years.
Absolutely, he's in Italy still, and they kept him there. And I don't think he wants to come back. Also, he's not in a rush to come back.
Right.
And may I add something?
Right.
In everywhere, no matter which city in the States, nobody wants to pay that tax. Okay, the only reason they pay the tax is because they're scared of the people who are in power. And that's where Turmel challenged that power. Decided, says, that's why he has so much balls or charisma, because he took both of these attributes that he has, and he says he convinced other people, and he says this is enough. They're at their weak point, they're getting older, they're getting fat, and we're gonna take them because we're doing all the legwork. We're doing all what they're supposed to be doing. So this is where I saw, and this is why we're also seeing other sanctions of the mob or gangs in Montreal taking more and more liberties, because the mob is getting older. They don't have as much family influence as they do. They have to go outsourcing to get their power, and some of these outsourcers work for money and not for respect or for the family.
So let's talk about Turmel's networking skills. Before the war breaks out with BFM and Hells Angels, we mentioned that he was working directly with Matt Pelletier, who is not an OG. He's a BG, a baby gangster. He's only been officially a Hells Angel for, I think, 3 years. He was in the Red Devils, which is the main support, one of the main support clubs for the Hells Angels. But we mentioned who was dad.
Their farm team.
Right, farm club. But he is, he's royalty. So Turmel was tied in directly into the royal family of the Quebec City Hells Angels. Then, as the war is launching back in the spring of 23, he's able to make a alliance with the Rizzutos, where the Rizzutos were providing resources. And at that point, the Rizzutos were in their own war with the Hells Angels, so it made sense to align with the Blood Family Mafia and use and benefit from each other. And I heard that my reporting sources his tie into the Rizzutos through a lieutenant of his who was a cousin of somebody in the Rizzutos. But the Rizzutos, as we've reported and talked about quite a bit, they figured out their problems with the Hells Angels, realized that it was bad for business on both ends of that war, and fixed the problem Now they're one cohesive unit again, working together very closely. A lot of, water under the bridge, letting bygones be bygones, and so forth. They advised, or I should say, the Rizzuto leadership advised Turmel to do the same thing, to make peace. Turmel, for all intents and purposes, told the Rizzutos to go fuck themselves, and
Absolutely.
then it looked like for the first, let's say, 75% of Turmel's time as a fugitive, he was being hidden by the Rizzutos.
Absolutely.
So,
exactly.
Then his resourcefulness, he breaks off the relationship with the Rizzutos, and it seems like he makes an immediate pivot to other mafia clans, but not in Sicily, which is where the Rizzutos have their
stronghold,
where their roots. And he ends up in Rome, doing business with Calabrian mafia clans. That's where he gets arrested last spring. So he's just a very resourceful young man that who knows where this goes, but he seems to find a port in every storm.
Absolutely. Listen, I think we spoke about it. It's impossible to be living in Europe without any resources. He needs these houses, he needs these phones, he needs to be hidden. He doesn't know Portugal, he doesn't know Spain, he doesn't know Italy as much as the rest of. So he needed people, and that's where the Rizzutos came in. And to tell them to go fuck themselves shows that he found somebody else. He found another port, like you said. He couldn't have just told them fuck yourselves and being completely alone, because I don't think he would have came out of Italy alive. That's my,
Well, I was surprised that they caught him in Italy. But and I guess this is before.
You're right about that.
Before I realized that he had jumped from the Rizzutos and made another type of alliance with another mafia clan, I would have thought they caught him in March. I believe by the end of 24, his relationship with the Rizzutos had gone south. And because of that, I figured he wouldn't be in Sicily or Italy.
Neither did I.
But the fact that they caught him in Rome, doing drug deals, driving a Mercedes, living in a luxury condo. But I don't think he's fighting extradition, but it's taking him a long time to bring him back. Because we're almost at Thanksgiving, and they caught him around St. Patrick's Day.
Is the government, the Italians, they want to take the most information they can from him? Because I think the rumors were he went to Algeria also. He made a lot of connections. So maybe they're trying to use him
North
Africa.
Can
get North Africa. Okay, so see if they can have anything from him extra that they don't know. Because don't forget, his lieutenant got caught really fast in Lisbon. Within 6 months, his lieutenant got caught. So I thought it was the end of him. I thought, listen, this guy is not going to last long.
It was his muscle, his bodyguard.
His bodyguard, exactly.
Right,
exactly.
So do you know Quebec City in the sense of I ask you to kind of compare and contrast Montreal to Quebec City. Do you know Charlesbourg? Is that
Charlebois? Yes. It's a suburb. Exactly. It's a little outskirt of Quebec.
Okay, so not only did this murder occur in Charlesbourg, but one of the other major slayings in this war took place in Charlesbourg in November of 23. Dooney Guerin, Michel Guerin. How would you pronounce that?
Guerin. G-U-R-E. Yeah, Guerin. Yeah.
So they called him Dooney. He was a Hells Angel affiliate, was doing the collections on the 10% street tax, and he was murdered out in front of his house in Charlesburg. The rumors, nobody's been charged for that homicide. The rumors were that the Rizzutos came up from Montreal and did that hit on behalf of Turmel. I mean, that's like I said, that shows some juice that if you're Turmel and you're not in the country, you can get the Rizzutos to leave their home base and go to your home base and not just kill a low-level soldier. I mean, in the sense of the war. And Dooney Guerin was not a Hell's Angel. He was he had been the president of some puppet clubs or some support clubs, but he was a major factor in the Hell's Angels' control of the streets of Quebec City, and he's gunned down in the same neighborhood as Jennifer Morin.
Yep. So you guys have an idea, so people understand. Quebec and Charlesbourg is the north of Quebec City is Charlesbourg. Northeast is where Charlesbourg is. Northwest is Beauport. And the south is Lévis, which is another stranglehold of where they are, and Sainte-Foy. So these are the four major, we could say, outskirts of Quebec City. And Charlesbourg, yep.
Well, just what you said, it's called, is it Lévis?
Lévis, right? Levis.
Okay,
Lévis.
so that's according to the arrest warrant. There was a turf dispute in Lévis that involved the Hells Angels and Blood Family Mafia, Jeff Morin.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons that, according to the Crown, Matt Pelletier ordered the murder. He was not there. Pelletier was not there. There was based on the court documents I'm seeing and arrest warrants I'm seeing, this was a pretty broad conspiracy. They raided a bunch of houses on September 30th, detained, I think, about 15 people.
Yeah.
I'm guessing this is why, I don't know this fact for a fact. This is speculation on my part. But I'm guessing that Pelletier, after those raids and arrests at the end of September, I'm guessing Pelletier left Quebec City, went to Toronto, and then was trying to leave Toronto for Mexico when they arrested him.
They arrested him. So you understand also the people, it's 10 kilometers, which is about 6.5 miles away from Quebec City. And like I said, all these outskirts were left alone, we could say, even because of the budget cuts, the police. So it was an area where there's a lot of people and nobody wanted to go there. So when you have a blood family mafia with their aggressiveness coming inside a place, they can take over pretty fast, without any real opposition. So people understand that's why, BFM became so strong, maybe, or so fast, because there was no opposition. And not only they didn't have an opposition, they were working for the people. So they knew all their hideouts. They knew exactly what they were doing. So they were the muscles, we could say, in a certain form.
Well, just look at the timeline on this. It took, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, please. I believe that the Quebec City Hells Angels were founded in 1988. So you're talking about, 40 years ish,
exactly,
of establishing a foothold and creating a atmosphere where everybody knows that you're the top dog. And Blood Family Mafia in 4 years does what it took the Hells Angels in Quebec City four decades to do.
Absolutely.
It's like a microwave. They microwaved their street game into the same stratosphere as the Rizzutos and the Hells Angels, almost out of nowhere.
In a certain form, you look at it in South America, you see how the Mexican cartels have taken over so fast. And so, we had the Colombians who, we could say, oh, they were the Pablo Escobar. And that within 5-6 years of Pablo leaving, the cartels totally, what Colombians had a stranglehold maybe in the 40-50 years, right? So
disappeared.
Exactly. So it's almost like a playbook. They took over. It's a perfect storm. Hell's Angels were getting older. Were getting a bit fatter. They don't want no wars. They wanted much more negotiations, and they thought that they could just sit down with this young guy and just, oh, we'll give you less, or we'll give you more, and and you're just gonna go away, but you're still gonna work for us. And it didn't happen.
Well, they looked at it as it's a privilege for you, pick Turmel, and your upstart blood family mafia. It's a privilege that we're letting you have a seat at the table.
Absolutely.
And we're letting you have face-to-face dealings and partnerships with not the OG, but again, I mean, Matt Pelletier, the name Pelletier in Quebec City. When you're talking about Hell's Angels, it's like, again, for people that are watching this that might not completely get it, it's like saying Gotti in Queens, or Merlino,
the son of Gotti. You're absolutely right. Exactly.
Listen, or Capone in Chicago.
The son of Mom Boucher didn't have the respect that Pelletier had.
Right.
And he was the son, just to give an example to the people who are listening, Mom Boucher was like the number one Hells Angels in Canada, and especially in Quebec. And him, his sons, and his daughter never had the name recognition that Pelletier had because of his father. So it just show you the God complex is really there, So him to challenge him, to put him there, and to make him
shoot up his house with his family.
Shoot up his house, exactly. Shows everything. It really is a microcosm of what's happening also in Montreal with the Arabs, and all these gangs who are saying, I'm not going to take orders from these 70-year-old men.
I'm not going to respect the old guard. This is the new guard.
Exactly. This is my team. I understand what you did, but now it's my turf, and it's over.
So,
and this is why. But this is why I think the Hells Angels and the mob got together again, because they say it's better if we get together. And let's squash our differences.
That was part of the pitch. That was part of the pitch from Pietro Diadamo.
Exactly, like you said it.
Negotiated the peace agreement with Marty Robert and the Hells Angels, where he's, this is detrimental to both of us, and we're ceding territory to a common enemy, and instead of working together, we're working against each other, so we're actually hurting ourselves by not coming back as a team. And again, as I said,
can I add something?
Yeah.
Can I add something to what one of your last shows on OG? It just shows how strong and how determined they are to be able to go after Martin Robert. Okay. Like you said, remember you
mean you go after Marty Robert with the shoot? We'll get into that in a moment. But yes, for somebody, whoever it is,
it takes a lot of balls. You might be crazy, you might be this, but it takes enormous balls to do it. I mean, it's almost you're writing your own obituary. You're able to do it. I mean, it really, really resembles what BFM did to some OGs in Quebec.
So we're gonna get we're gonna shift gears into Montreal in like 2 minutes. I just want to finish up with Quebec City, saying, talking to my sources in the SQ, RCMP guys on the street, trying to get an idea of how the Quebec City Hells Angels differed from Marty Robert and Mom Boucher and Stadnik and all those other guys from other parts of the country. I've been told that the Quebec City Hells Angels is almost like a mafia in itself. It's very clannish, a lot of bloodlines.
Exactly.
Not just Pelete, a couple other bloodlines or guys that started the club and have progeny or relatives that are involved. And then, wrapping up here, talking about how fearless and how personal this is. And again, I don't need to belabor this, as we've talked about it before, but part of this war between the Quebec City Hells Angels and Blood Family Mafia included an OG from Quebec City Hells Angels, Mario Bananas Auger,
Exactly.
Surviving a kidnapping attempt. This was after he goes to Europe and tries to negotiate on behalf of the Peletes and Marty Robert. Tries to go meet Turmel in Portugal. Turmel will not have will not take an audience with him. And a couple months later, the Blood Family Mafia tries to kidnap Auger. He survives it. And then a day or two after that, they kidnap his some nephews and some cousins, and they start chopping off fingers and toes and ears. And then a couple of the nephews or cousins escape. They were like being held for ransom. They escape. They kill one of Turmel's guys. Auger is then goes back to Europe on a hunting
on a different expedition,
hunting trip to go find and kill Turmel. He's got a $500,000 contract on his head. Comes home after that trip, goes to the Quebec City police, says, "We're done. The war's over with." Then he gets arrested on drug charges, and then like a week after he's arrested, there's more violence, and whatever that peace agreement fell apart very quickly.
It escalates.
And then the last thing I'll say about Blood Family Mafia, and then we're going to move to Montreal. They're no longer just a Quebec City regime. I mean, under Turmel being, Turmel running Blood Family Mafia from afar, because he's been in Europe since the spring of 23. You have an expansion going on with his, approval, and his lieutenants doing the expanding. They're all over Quebec now, not just Quebec City. So there's a status factor now with Blood Family Mafia, a cool factor that makes people, in the same way that makes people want to join up with the Hells Angels, the younger guys want to be a part of Blood Family Mafia.
Exactly. It's really, really incredible to see this happening in our time. It's historical in a sense of a criminal mind. You're seeing Hell's Angels being pushed aside as a label of a out of touch label, we could say. We had this new generation, that they're the new wave showing up, and I want to join them instead of joining the other ones, which is, to me, an incredible. I didn't ever imagine that I would see this while living. That the Hells Angels would be a group saying, they're old timers. They're not really, and the only ones that are really showing a bit of it's Martin Robert, which he shows, but he's showing a lot of corporate leadership. Yeah.
So let's move to Marty Robert for a moment. I had the exclusive on this. At some point earlier this month, there was a drive-by shooting at one of Marty Robert's primary headquarters when he's in Canada. I've been reporting a lot about Marty. He's this international man of mystery. He might be the most powerful Hells Angel in all of Quebec, in all of Montreal. But because of the state of the underworld and all of this warfare, he's not been spending a lot of time in Canada the last couple of years. He is, in addition to being self-preservation mode, he's also in political mode as being the main international politician for all of Hell's Angels Nation, not just Canadian, but for the whole, all 7,000 full patches and 70 different countries and 700 chapters. So Marty Robert wasn't present when this happened, but I'm told that it's believed that it was street gang members. I don't know exactly what that means. I don't know if that means Blood Family Mafia. I don't know if that means Tupac Atna from the Rat Pack mob. But I was told it was street gang members, and it was a casino on an Indian reservation, which has Marty Robert is the primary silent owner, and then the Rizzutos also have pieces of the casino, and there's a lot of, from what I understand, Rizzuto lieutenants that go and socialize there with Hell's Angels.
Absolutely.
And this was a direct attack on Marty Robert. Whether it came from Blood Family Mafia, I don't know. I'm leaning more towards Tupac because of the issues that Tupac and his guys have. They've declared their own war against the Rizzutos and the Hells Angels after Tupac and his guys being first. They were in the Rizzuto camp. Then they fought for the Hells Angels during the war against the Rizzutos. Then they moved back to the Rizzuto camp. And now, since last spring, they've been opposed to them and firebombing and trying to extort businesses that the Rizzutos and the Hells Angels have, and they've taken some control of the port of Montreal, which has given them leverage.
Which is an incredible information, because again, all I know, imagine seeing the Irish mob, we could say, getting pushed aside or giving a little part of their port to the Arab power or whatever other group other than the mob. It's an incredible feat just in that area. If you're talking about Montreal, especially the power structure.
Well, it gives the so-called Rat Pack. It empowers them. It emboldens them that they could take a piece of the port. No street gangs have ever had a piece of the port.
Never.
And now a street gang has at least a piece, if not a big piece. And that's definitely given them their own leverage points. But
can I add something?
I'm gonna go hit. Yeah,
Scott, can I add something just a second? Historically,
mm-hmm.
Every port in Europe, every port in the States, especially in the States and Canada, a lot of these people that came and work at the port were hardworking people, right? Because it was a hard job. And who didn't want to work there? Who wanted to work there was the people that came from Ireland. A lot of the Italians that showed up at the beginning, So that's why the population of the Irish took over the ports, because they were mostly the dock workers in every major port in the States and in Canada. Now, immigration, there's 10% of what's coming from Europe is coming from Muslim countries or Arab countries, right? So you see the dynamics, and that's why they're gaining in population, because for every Italian, there's three or four people from Arab countries that are, and especially here in Quebec, because they have to speak French. So we go and get people that have a French background. So that's why Algeria and all these countries in Africa are coming here much more. So that's why we're seeing this power dynamics leaving the port. It's not just because, they're losing control. It's because population makes them, they need jobs. They're going to places where, and now they put one foot in there. So they're putting their friends there. And they're taking control of a port that has power dynamics being taken away from them because of age, because of all sorts of reasons.
I mean, in both of these cases, You have, I mean, that's a great, and then by the way, that's a great analysis, and I think it gives some understanding in the background of how the dynamics shift and how somebody like Ana Atna, aka Tupac, and his people can establish themselves in an area that they've never been established before. And it also speaks to how people like Atna and Turmel, they have no respect for the natural order of things. The way that things have always been means nothing to them. They're being disruptors. In the most pure sense of the word, and being a Hell's Angel or being a Rizzuto doesn't persuade them against attacking you.
Absolutely not.
So
no, absolutely not. It's even gonna give them more clout at this point. They're saying this guy did this against the Rizzutos. They're gonna have even more power. They're making a name out of themselves now. You attacking these names on the streets.
We're taking a shot at Marty Robert. I mean, you take a shot at the king, you better not miss.
You better not miss.
And you look what happened. Look what happened with Leo Rizzuto and Chet Del Balso. Chet missed, and then 5 months later he was dead. I don't know. Again, we can't confirm who pulled that drive-by, but whoever it was is definitely tempting fate. And Marty Robert, isn't somebody. He's somebody that he isn't somebody that's going to let something like that slide, but he is somebody that is deliberate in their movements. He's not impulsive, which I think is.
I think to get at that top level, you're a CEO. You're definitely a CEO. You cannot be impulsive, even though it attacked you personally. He's gonna get you, but it's gonna be a strategy that not everybody can use.
And the fact that they went on the Indian reservation, which I think is another level of it's also another level of encroachment. Like, you didn't try to hit Marty leaving a bar or a restaurant. You came onto the Indian reservation where his family is, his mother-in-law, Sharon Simon, the queen pin, his wife Annie, and they're from the Indian reservation.
It's a bold statement. It's in every sense of the word. It's an tremendous bold statement. They're going on. It's almost like going in an area totally controlled by the cartels in Mexico and trying to get El Chapo there. It's a total
going to Sinaloa and trying to assassinate El Chapo.
Exactly.
So let's kind of use Marty Robert as a bridge to the final part of this pod I want to talk about, which is it appears that the Rizzutos have built another alliance outside of Canada with the New York Russian mob or mafia out of Brooklyn. There were dozens of call centers set up by the Rizzutos where they purchased from mass marketing companies call sheets. They targeted retired elderly couples in the United States and Canada and just started mass calling them, pretending like they were that couple's grandchildren. And they extorted tens of millions of dollars over a period of time. And they needed to be able to move that money from the street and from the United States to the coffers of the Rizzuto mob. they were doing it based on the court documents that came out on these pleas from some of the leaders of the grandparents game scam pled out, pled guilty to their charges. And in those court documents, it says that they were laundering the money through New York Diamond District, through jewelry stores. I then was able to find out that they were partnered with the Russian Mafia in Brooklyn. They weren't doing it because at first I thought this meant that they were working with the Italians in New York, which would make sense because of the previous relationship between the Rizzutos and the Bonanno crime family. But from my reporting, New York Mafia, New York LCN had nothing to do with this. This was all directly between the Russians, the Rizzutos, the Hells Angels, and the West End Irish. And I'm told that the Rizzutos were introduced to the Russians by Marty Robert, who's got a lot of connections in Russia and Moscow, and the West End guys who knew some of these Russians from the port.
Exactly.
So what does it say to you that there's another group now enters the picture?
It fits like a glove. And don't forget, it's kind of incredible how you see it also involved. Would you have seen the Italian mob 40 years ago do extortion on elderly people? It's like I don't know if it did. You're an historian in that. Maybe you know more than I do, but call centers to get older people a scam. It's like, at one point it was taboo to sell drugs. We all found out that they did sell drugs, but it was almost like taboo. Now, call centers. I remember there's a story here in Montreal where there's an old street gang got Ducarme Joseph, and Ducarme Joseph was a killer, and this guy also
Killer Kenny.
Exactly. And he got killed, in a certain way. But they said that he had also very good connections with call centers. He had call centers all over Montreal, mostly because Montreal's law is much leaner if you get caught. You don't do 20, 30 years. You do 2.5 years and go to the next one. So, so it's kind of weird how it's evolving, but it's just different players, doing the same thing, just with more technology.
My reporting says that there's all this money being made from this phone scam, and it was needed, is what I'm told, because of all of the instability in the 2010s and into the 2020s, and we had spoken about this on a previous podcast in terms of the unions. The Rizzutos were losing. They weren't just in a war. They were losing money from rackets, losing contracts from construction projects, getting, smaller percentages of gambling and drug rackets because of all of the instability.
The turmoil. Yeah, exactly.
And this was a influx of cash that they used to continue operating, business as usual, that they wouldn't have been able to do with losing all, this other capital. But by this extortion scheme, they were able to infuse, their coffers with money. And now I'm being told a lot of the defense fund being used to defend a lot of the Rizzutos that are behind bars right now, fighting gangsterism and murder charges, that defense fund, that war chest,
is coming from
coming from the grandparents' game, extortion scheme.
It makes a lot of sense. And don't ever forget how humans work. In the union side, I remember we never used to say, let's not unionize Walmart. Let's not unionize all these stores. It's low grading. The guys are getting paid low and all that. They weren't talking about it. But when the union funds, a lot of companies left Montreal, left out. What did they do? They say, let's unionize Walmart. Let's unionize Amazon, because the money was being left behind. There was no more refineries, no more coal mines, no more mines, no more, So all these industrial industries were leaving Quebec for X reasons. So now all of a sudden, hey, let's go back to what you came back 2 years, 3 years ago. Let's unionize Amazon. And this hypocrisy we see, I can use it with what's happening in the in the criminal mind. Saying let's not use the extortion of old folks. But now that we need it, I think it's about time we use it.
And it's not very. It's not a very sexy racket. I mean,
no,
you have all these kids, literally kids. I think guys that they're teenagers and guys in their 20s, even probably women as well, all kind of, smushed in these call centers and just, calling like you're somebody trying to sell a stock. You're just cold calling. And obviously it's kind of sleazy because you're preying on elderly people that might have some, their acuities aren't as sharp as they were at one point. But like you said, as long as the money's green, who cares if it's not sexy? If it's gonna, pay the bills and keep things moving, keeping the lights on, that's what they reverted to. There was a murder tied to it. Pietro Diadamo's protege, Josh Soroino, aka Silent J. I guess this would be my last real question for you. So Silent J Soroino pleads no contest to the grandparents' game, but he's now facing another trial for murder. He murdered he allegedly, the Crown accuses him of murdering another shot caller in this grandparents' game extortion scam named Eric DeSosa, killed in the middle of a Italian restaurant in the middle of a mall as a hockey playoff watch party was going on. Soroino was acquitted because eyewitnesses said that the shooter had blonde hair. Silent J's got brown hair. But Silent J's DNA and fingerprints were at the scene. But the appeals court said you can't base an acquittal just on hair color or eye color because you can change that. You can dye your hair or contacts.
Yeah, exactly.
Does that? I'm not. I guess what I'm asking you is like I'm not. I'm a lawyer here. I don't know the law in Canada. Is that surprising to you that there would be a reversal of an acquittal based on something like that?
I haven't read the case at all, but it does. It does. There's something smelly behind this, in my opinion. To me, the reversal.
You hear more about guilty verdicts being thrown out. You don't really hear about someone being found not guilty, especially of a murder, and then having to go back. I mean, it seems like double jeopardy, but
it's very close to that. Exactly. It doesn't exist here in Montreal, in Canada, double jeopardy, but doesn't matter. So that people understand, it's very, very, to me, in French, they say, anguille sous roche. There's something being underneath this rock. There's something really fishy, in my opinion, that. And if you and don't forget, not the serial killer, but the mob killer, we still don't have information on him that much.
Freddie
Silva, exactly. Silva. Yeah, and I think they're going to try to use him to get a bit more on the Rizzutos and maybe to plant some seeds there. That is the next one I see coming. Maybe I'm wrong there, but this is what I see.
I just, if I was Soroino's attorney, and I'm not sure if this was presented at the first trial, but you can say, yeah, my fingerprints and my DNA were there because I was there. It was a party to watch hockey, and everybody from this grandparents' game scam were all there together, having dinner, drinking, and watching the hockey. So, yeah, I was there, but I didn't kill him.
Exactly. Yeah. So It makes sense. It really does. Even on both sides, I'm trying to defend somebody. I was at a party. I took a beer. I took your beer without knowing it. They picked it up. It was my beer. It was your beer, but it was my fingerprints on it. There's a lot of way to move out of it, but there's still something kind of fishy with this case itself.
Well, thank you, Ken. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to join us and give us some updates from. We go right to the source, boots on the ground in Quebec, in Montreal. Thank you so much. We will
I
have
think
you
you
on
got a
before
lot
the
of
end of
boots
the
on the
year.
ground, my friend.
Yeah.
I think you got a lot of
So,
boots on the ground. And I'll tell you a little thing. I'll tell everybody listening. A lot of the stories we speak behind the scenes, you and I, and as a lot of these stories, I give feedback to some journalists here in Montreal, and none of them give you the kudos that tell it. Listen, we got this story from original gangster. We started
yeah.
working on it and we pushed it. It wasn't exactly what he said, but it's right. There were at that meeting. It was this, it was that. None of them can give you. And this is where journalism is at right now. They
Yeah.
don't
Well,
like podcasters. They don't like podcasters.
they don't like American podcasters. They definitely don't.
Especially American
Yeah.
podcasters. Yes, they're right.
Well, we're
For
going to keep
sure.
doing what we're doing, and we're really proud of our sourcing in Canada. And on the last, 3-4 years, we've become a real go-to source for the underworld, day-to-day underworld activities in Canada and all these wars. And we're lucky to have sources from guys in, within the Rizzuto camp, within the Hells Angels camp, within law enforcement, giving us information. So we're proud of what we've been able to establish there. Ken, you are a superstar of a guest. I get people emailing me. You need to bring Ken back on. You need to bring Ken back on. So I'm glad
Thank you very much.
get you
Appreciate it.
back on. And everybody, please like, share, and subscribe. Original Gangsters Podcast for Ken Pereira, for Benny Behind the Glass producing. We're uncovering the underworld, one city, one region, one country at a time. We're out.